I grew up in a house that never felt level, where every wall leaned slightly toward my sister Alyssa, as if even the structure understood who mattered more. She lived on a throne built from small, effortless privileges, the best schools, the prettiest clothes, the unwavering attention of parents who shaped every decision around her comfort. She didn't demand the world, they simply handed it to her. And me? I became the quiet problem solver in the background, the one they counted on to adjust, to be flexible, to manage somehow. Not unloved, just unseen in the spaces where love should have landed. While Alyssa shone in the center, I learned to live in the shadows, holding together the parts of the family no one else bothered to notice. Praise in our house was a language I never learned, mostly because it was never spoken in my direction. Alyssa's birthdays always looked like full-scale festivals, balloons brushing the ceiling, cakes layered like wedding towers, relatives arriving with gifts wrapped in glitter. Mine, on the other hand, felt more like an afterthought squeezed between grocery runs and someone's half-finished chore list. And it didn't end there. Whenever Alyssa did something small, win a classroom contest, learn a new dance move, breathe the right way, my parents treated it like a national achievement. But whenever I accomplished something real, something I had worked nights and weekends to earn, all I ever got was a distracted, good job tossed over a shoulder as they moved on. It was in those moments I realized applause wasn't missing because I didn't deserve it, it was missing because they never learned how to give it to me. It happened on a night that should have been ordinary, quiet house, dim hallway, the kind of evening where nothing important is supposed to happen. I was walking past the living room when I heard my name floating somewhere in the middle of my parents' voices. I paused, thinking maybe they were finally talking about me with something close to pride. But the next words shattered that hope instantly. Focus on Alyssa, my father said, calm and decisive. She's the one who'll make us proud. My mother agreed without hesitation, as if the decision had been made long ago. The silence that followed hit me harder than the words themselves. It was the kind of silence that erases you. In that moment, standing barefoot on the cold floor, I felt something deep inside me tilt, like the foundation of my childhood had been quietly cracking for years, and this was the night it finally split open. I wasn't their daughter in the way Alyssa was. I wasn't someone to invest in or encourage or dream for. I was the reliable one, the fallback option, the person they expected to hold everything together without ever asking for anything in return. Their words didn't just hurt, they rearranged the entire blueprint of what I thought family meant. And as I backed away from the doorway, unnoticed as always, I realized something that would stay with me forever. Some truths don't break you instantly. They hollow you out slowly, until one day you realize you were standing on empty ground all along. After that night, I began mastering a skill no child should ever have to learn, the art of making myself smaller. I stopped sharing the little victories I worked so hard for, because every time I did, the room shifted back toward Alyssa like a reflex. I stopped asking for things not because I didn't need them, but because the answer was always a reminder of where I stood. Slowly, I trained myself not to expect anything at all. It was easier to disappear quietly than to compete with someone I was never meant to stand beside. I learned to carry disappointments with steady hands and swallow words that deserved to be spoken. And strangely, the less I expected from them, the stronger I became. Without their approval shaping my choices, without their praise defining my worth, I started building myself in silence, on my own terms, in my own way. What they mistook for obedience was actually transformation. Every inch I shrank for them became ground I reclaimed for myself. While Alyssa drifted into sleep every night without a single worry in her world, I was wide awake, working shifts, studying under dim lamps, saving every spare coin, and teaching myself the skills no one believed I could ever possess. They never asked where I was, never wondered why I came home tired, never noticed the quiet determination shaping me in the dark. But that was the point. My efforts weren't for applause, and they weren't for them. Every late-night grind, every sacrifice, every quiet victory became a brick in the foundation of the life I was secretly constructing, one far beyond their control, far beyond their expectations, far beyond the shadow Alyssa's throne cast over me. They thought I was just surviving. They had no idea I was preparing to leave their world behind entirely. The moment that ended every last piece of doubt came quietly, almost casually, like all the wounds before it. I asked for something small, something so simple it wouldn't have made a dent in anyone's world. For the first time in years, I let myself hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd meet me halfway. But my father didn't even look up when he answered. "Alyssa needs it. You're used to managing on your own." Used to. As if my years of silence were a natural state. As if carrying everything alone was a personality trait instead of a burden they placed on me. That sentence didn't just sting, it clarified everything. I hadn't grown strong by choice. I'd been conditioned to survive without them, shaped by the gaps they never bothered to fill. And in that moment, something inside me finally snapped into place. Not anger. Not sadness. Just truth. I realized I wasn't asking for support, I was asking strangers who shared my last name to treat me like I mattered. And I was done doing that. When I finally decided to leave, I didn't pack memories or apologies, just the parts of myself they never managed to break. One bag, neatly zipped. One steady breath to calm the storm they'd spent years creating inside me. And then one last look at the house that had never felt like home. Not really, just a place where I learned to shrink so someone else could shine. There were no dramatic goodbyes, no slammed doors, no explanations left behind on the kitchen counter. I simply stepped out quietly, the way I'd lived for so long, except this time the silence belonged to me. No tears followed me down the driveway. No one noticed the way I turned the corner without hesitation. It was a walk they never imagined I'd take, a walk toward a world where I finally belonged to myself, where I wasn't a backup plan or an afterthought, but the author of my own life. And with every step, the weight of their expectations slipped off my shoulders like dust I'd carried far too long. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. The moment they realized I wasn't coming back, not to fix things, not to smooth things over, not to carry the weight they'd always dumped on me, the panic began. My phone lit up like a siren, missed calls piling one after another, messages arriving in frantic clusters, voicemails layered with guilt, confusion, and a desperation they had never shown when I actually needed them. My father's clipped commands softened into questions. My mother's silence turned into trembling apologies. Even Alyssa, wrapped in the comfort they'd built around her, suddenly remembered my name. But every notification felt like an echo of years they chose not to care. The irony? They only noticed my absence when they needed the version of me they'd taken for granted. The dependable one. The fixer. The shadow who held the house together. But I didn't open a single message. I didn't listen to their excuses or pleas. I let the phone vibrate on the table until it went silent, finally matching the silence they had given me for years. Distance wasn't revenge. It was the peace I had earned. And for the first time, their panic didn't pull me back, it pushed me forward. The life I built after leaving didn't arrive in a dramatic burst. It unfolded quietly, beautifully, in ways my family never believed I was capable of. A new city became my clean slate, a place where no one saw me as second best or the child who always managed on her own. I crafted a new routine, a new identity, and a peace so steady it felt like breathing for the first time. Every step I took was one they had never imagined for me. I made choices without asking permission, built stability without their approval, and found confidence in the silence they left behind. And while they stayed behind in the house where I was always an afterthought, I became someone they would never fully understand, the version of me they never bothered to see. They had treated me like a backup plan, someone to rely on only when it was convenient, but distance allowed me to become something else entirely. A life they could only wonder about. A success they could never claim. And an ending they never saw coming.